So in today's video, we're going to look at early game food in Valheim, as well as some cooking options when you are a beginner and new to the game. Now, what I'm going to show you today is going to be my opinions on what I think is the best food you can have early game, and some things that you might want to consider. However, like most things in Valheim, it is a bit subjective and will depend on the way in which you specifically want to play the game. As such, why not let us know down in the comments if you disagree with anything I've said here today, and what you think might be some better options. But without any further ado, let's jump into it. So, where can you find early game food in Valheim? Well, here are your options. First of all, near the water, you'll find these things. These are called necks. Now, these are not super strong, but they will attack you and will keep attacking you to run away from them or kill them. When you kill a neck, what you'll get is a neck tail, which will look a little bit like this. It's not much use to you raw, but when you cook it, it'll give you this. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit later on. That is your first option for finding food. Just a side note here, you can see there's about 3 necks in this area in the meadows, nowhere really near the water. So you don't necessarily have to be near water to find necks if you are specifically looking for them. And by going through meadows, you also give yourself the chance of finding mushrooms and raspberries and deer and boar and stuff. So it's probably a pretty good place for you to be going through. I just thought I'd mention that in case it wasn't clear with what I said earlier. Next up, we have the deer, and you see a deer there in front of me. Now, to get to a deer, you have a couple of options. If you're at the stage where you've already made a bow, you can go ahead and shoot the deer and just kill it to harvest it for the raw meat and also the deer hide that you'll get with a chance drop of the deer trophy. But today, specifically, we're talking about food, so this will give you this raw meat here, which you can then later cook into cooked meat. Again, we're going to talk about this later on, but that's how you get that. However, if you're not up the stage of a bow, I'm going to show you now how you can creep up on a deer. Okay, so if you don't have a bow yet, you can also sneak up on deer. So we've got a deer over there. Now, the first thing to say is you do want to pay attention to the wind direction. So that is shown in the map in the top right of the screen in the bottom left hand corner. So right now you can see that the way I'm sort of facing on the map, if I face in this direction, the wind is blowing against me. Now, this is perfect. This is going to be easier to sneak up on the deer. If the wind was facing the same direction, so if your arrow is going the same direction as the wind, then the animal will smell you from further away and you can't creep up so easily. So that's a useful little tip. Now, in terms of creeping up, you press Control to creep, and here we go. Now, you can see on screen right there, there's a little bar that's going down. When that runs out, you will stop creeping. So if that runs out before you get to the deer, you're not creeping anymore, he's going to see you. But there we go, we could creep the whole way up there and go ahead and kill him and get those drops. So that's just how you're going to kill those deer, and just a little tip there about how you can creep up on them from a little bit further away. Just realized I actually said that wrong. It's not how you can creep up on them from further away, it's how you can be closer to them and creep up on them because of the whole wind thing. Yeah, you guys know what I mean. Let's move on. Another thing you'll find wandering around are the boar. Now, these are pretty useful, and here we go. He's going to attack you, so you do want to be a little bit careful, but you don't need to sneak up on them like you do with deer. They're just going to attack you, but what they'll do is they'll sort of run away like that, and then they'll come back and attack. You can block them pretty easily. They'll run away, and they'll come back. And so when they come back, what you want to do is just time it right and give it a bit of a whack, and try not to get hit like I just did. But there you go. You can go ahead and kill them, and from those you'll get the leather scraps, and you'll also get some more of the raw meat. So the raw meat comes from the deer and from the boar. Boar are preferable because you can farm them, and there will be a linked video in the video pinned comments, which will show you a tutorial for how you can easily farm boar even in early game. Okay, so next up we have raspberries, which you'll often find in meadows areas. You can see them in the bushes here just like this. Press E to pick them up. Now, one thing to note is you might want to mark the location like I've done here on your map. The reason being is that the raspberries will respawn here after 300 minutes of being picked. Now, 300 minutes, yes, it's a long time, but if you have like maybe 5 or 6 little areas like this around your base, then at least you know exactly where to go next time you need raspberries. So just something to think about, but that is something that is going to be quite useful in early game food, and also more towards intermediate food, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second as well. Next up, we have mushrooms, also found in the meadows biomes, and again, you can just go ahead and pick them up when you see them. Now, again, you might want to mark the location on the map because the mushrooms will respawn in the same place after 240 minutes, so a bit more often than the raspberries, and again, you can pick these up and they will be quite useful. Oh, there's really quite useful to you. So yeah, just something to consider there as well. So that right there is how you get just about all of the different early game foods available to you. However, I didn't mention honey, and that is the most important one. There is a video in the pinned comments which will show you a tutorial on how to find and farm honey early game. It's very easy to do. Essentially, you need to find beehives out in the wild and get queen bees and stuff like that, but very easy. There's a video down there if you want it. Now, as you see here, you can extract honey from it. Now, honey is hands down the best food you're going to get early game. There's a couple reasons for this. First of all, if we hover over it right here, you'll see that it gives you a health of 20 and a stamina of 20, which is pretty good, but the healing is 5 HP per tick, which is the best in the early game you are going to get. If we compare that to, say, some cooked meat, for example, you only get 2 per tick, so it really is quite a useful thing to have. The other thing about honey is it's farmable, right? You can easily farm it it early game, you don't need too much to do it, and so you can get an unlimited resource of this right here in your base, so it's super easy to get. The other thing to say about honey as well is that you can eat it quite often. When you eat it, it doesn't last for too long, so you can keep eating it, and if you're in trouble against like a boss or a group of mobs or something like that, then you can quickly eat your honey and get that 5 HP healing per tick. So honey is hands down, I would say, you have to have it as part of your arsenal of food early game, which leaves us with 2 other types of foods, because of course you can have a maximum of 3 different foods shown in the bottom left of the screen here that you can eat at any one time. So now let's take a look at the other options and what I suggest for those other 2 foods. Okay, so what I recommend along with your honey as the best 2 other foods to eat are necktails and also the cooked meat. Now, raspberries and mushrooms, they are super easy to get. They are a renewable resource, as we talked about, they will respawn. But there is a good reason why I'm saying not to eat these, and we're going to come on to that in a second. But first, let's look at this. So the necktails, I mean, they're not that difficult to get. You can kill them pretty easily. The necks, you'll see them all over the map, and they give you a health of 35, stamina of 20, a duration of 1,000 seconds, which is really good, and 2 HP per tick. So if we compare that to, for example, like a mushroom, it's only 600 seconds, only 15 and 20 health and stamina respectively, only 1 HP per tick. So really, when you stack them up against other foods, the necktails are going to be better. Also, yeah, okay, this stuff is cooked, whereas this you can just pick up and eat, but cooking is super simple. So all we have is a structure like this. This will prevent the campfire from going out in the rain, and also we can cook super easy. I'm going to come on to cooking at the end, but it's minimal resources to get your fire and cooking station set up. So once you've got that done, I would say it just makes a lot more sense to have this stuff. And then as for the cooked meat, you get that from the boar and the deer. You're going to need to kill a lot of them early game anyway. You're going to have a lot of this meat, and as you can see there, health 40, stamina 30, duration 1200. The cooked meat is just a definite one to have. It's just pretty close to having as the honey, as being like, there's just no 2 ways about it. The necktail is the one you could probably kind of argue that you maybe are better off with raspberries or mushrooms. However, the reason I say to avoid those is they are both useful in the intermediate food that you're going to be having, so I would say save them up. Now, intermediate food is going to require a cauldron, and I might do a separate video about this, but just for today I want to show you guys that in carrot soup it will require a mushroom. Now, it only requires 1, but still it is kind of useful to save them, and still the mushroom is not better than the necktails. Sure, if you haven't got necktails, or you're struggling for food, then go ahead and eat the mushrooms early game, but saving them can be useful for this. As for the raspberries, well, this is where the Queen's Jam is a super good food, right? You can see here it requires 8 raspberries, also 8 blueberries, but they're a bit more of an intermediate food to get because you do have to venture into a black forest to get them. Today I'm focusing on just very beginner food. As I say, I might do a separate video for that. But the Queen's Jam, as you can see over here, is a fantastic food to have. I mean, it's intermediate, even bordering on to like a late game food. So I would definitely say that saving up and having a lot of Queen's Jam is going to be super helpful for you when you're fighting against bosses and that kind of thing. So these are the 3 that I recommend. However, like I said, guys, this is a subjective thing. If you guys disagree, if you have different things you want to offer, let me know down in the comments. Let's get a discussion going around this. Go ahead, tell me I'm wrong. Okay, so in terms of cooking, what do you need to do? Well, all you actually need to do cooking is to have a fireplace, and on top of it place a cooking station. So we go, oops, I accidentally just started cooking something. If we go ahead and just have a look at this real quick, to actually make this stuff in the first place, the fireplace is 5 stone and 2 wood, whereas the cooking stations right here are simply 2 wood. Very easy to make these up, as I said, and then you'll also need to use a little bit of wood on the fire as well. The reason being that the fire needs the wood to burn, but still, you're going to have plenty of this early game. So I just accidentally cooked one of these. Now, the reason for this structure is to keep it dry during the rain. So basically, the campfire there not getting wet, and if it did, it would go out. But you could put this, outside and just use it when it's not raining or something like that. Now, in terms of the cooking stands, you can get up to 6 cooking stands over a single fireplace. You'll see here I've got 5. The reason I've done this is because the food stacks in 20s. So I know that if I've got 20 raw meat here, I can simply go through and do 2 trips to cook it, and then it's all done. But you can have 6 if you would like. Now, in terms of putting things onto the cooking stand, you see if I go up here and press E, it'll just take something out of my inventory there, and it will put the food onto the cooking stand. So right now it is taking my raw meat. You see that's gone down now to 16 out of 20 because I've placed a few on there, right, like that. However, if I'm holding both and I want to cook necktails, I can simply look there and press number 2, and now the necktails are going on. So that is a way that you can be specific about what you're cooking if you want to. Now, the cooking process, you'll see here in a second that the sort of graphic here will change, and the meat will go, there we go, to cooked meat from the raw meat. Now, if we leave it on there, it will burn and it will turn into charcoal. This is not something that's preferable, but it can be useful early game. If you don't have enough certain cores to get the charcoal kiln going, you could maybe just burn your food like this instead to get charcoal. As I say, it's not ideal, but it might be useful in certain situations. So if you go for the food that I suggested, let's have a look now at what it actually does to your hit points. Now, to eat food, if it's on your hotbar, you can simply press the number. So if I press 1 here, I'll eat my honey, or in your inventory you can simply right click, and that's probably an easier way to go about it. But there we go. So if I run around now, you see where my stamina bar is at. That's the sort of stamina that you're going to get from this sort of food. And now we'll have a look here at where our hit points max out at. Okay, so you saw there we were on 112, it just went down there to 111 hit points, but I mean that is pretty good early game, and of course now the buffs have stopped kicking in, so it's not going to go up any more than that until we eat again. But still, I think, you know, all things considered, this to me just seems to make sense as the early game food, and I hope this video helped you guys out. If it did, please do consider liking and subscribing for more. I do make a lot of Valheim content, as you will see if you look through my channel, but for today I just want to say thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. So, did this episode make you hungry for more, or are you disgusted at my food choices? As I said, let me know down in the comments what food you think beats this 3 combo. I'd be interested to see, who knows, maybe I've made a mistake. It happened once before, right? So, who knows?